Chapter 7, The Final Choice. The world was a kaleidoscope of red and blue light, tearing through a cacophony of sirens. My ears were ringing, a high-pitched, insistent drone that fought against the sound of shouting voices and the frantic rhythm of a gurney being rushed down polished corridors. I was floating, suspended between the blinding, visceral pain that had brought me down and a cold, merciful numbness. Every shallow breath was a desperate negotiation with my body, a plea to the life within me to simply hold on. I slipped in and out of consciousness, fleetingly registering the cold metal bars of the bed and the crisp, unfamiliar smell of antiseptic and fear. I knew, even in my fog, that I was no longer a free man. I was still under the control of the Thorne Corporation. The security guards flanking the entrance to my hospital room weren't there to protect me, they were there to ensure I didn't escape again. My heart, weak and frantic, sank further when I heard a familiar voice, sharp and chillingly controlled, speaking just outside my door. It was Evender. He wasn't just my captor, he was the head of the house, the power that controlled the air I breathed. Secrecy is paramount. Evender's voice, low and devoid of warmth, cut through the quiet hum of medical machines. He is my husband. The child is my heir. I require full authority over all medical decisions and all staff. No one speaks of this, not to the press, not to the police, and certainly not to any associative cases. The cold, hard finality of his command settled over me like a shroud. I was entirely alone, completely helpless, and under the absolute dominion of the man who had ordered my destruction. My mind raced back to the sight of Kais being overwhelmed, the sound of his furious roar cut short. He had been arrested. I knew it. He had fought so hard to save me at that ruined refinery, but he hadn't been fast enough. He was gone, locked away, and I was back in the lion's den, wounded and pregnant. When I finally managed to surface fully from the haze of pain and medication, the first thing I saw was Doreen. She was sitting in a chair by the window, her back straight, her hands clasped neatly in her lap. She wasn't wearing her security uniform. Instead, she was dressed in a pristine white silk blouse and dark trousers, looking more like an executive assistant than a guard. Her presence was a subtle, constant reminder of Evender's control. She gave me a neutral, almost clinical nod. "Welcome back, Jaime," she said, her voice devoid of any genuine feeling. "Try not to move too much. The doctors have given you something to stop the contractions." I tried to sit up, but the restraints on my wrists and ankles, thin, but steel-strong leather straps, held me fast to the bed. Humiliation burned in my chest. "The baby," I croaked, my throat dry and raw. Is he okay?" Doreen sighed, a flicker of something almost pitying in her eyes. "Stable. But the heart rate is weak. They said your physical state is fragile, Jaime. You pushed yourself too hard. You should rest. It's what Evender wants." My gaze drifted to the window. Outside, the world was moving on without me. Kais was arrested. Lucien, the lawyer, was out there somewhere, guarding the hard drive with the evidence Marcus had left behind. They were fighting on the outside, and I was pinned down on the inside, a victim in a war I never asked for. Hours later, the room had settled into a routine of hushed voices and beeping machines. A nurse, a kind-faced woman whose eyes held a secret sympathy, came in to adjust my fore. She was followed by Clara, my only true friend, who had bullied her way past Doreen with a basket of stale fruit and a professional, unyielding facade. Clara leaned close, her dark hair shielding us from Doreen's view. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, she was terrified. "They're not charging Kais yet, Jaime," Clara whispered, her voice tight. "He's only being held on some trumped-up trespassing charge. It's a holding pattern. Lucien is with Marcus's personal safe deposit box. He has a backup of the hard drive." Relief, sharp and sudden, made my eyes sting. "He's safe. Kais is safe. Marcus's evidence is safe." "He called me," Clara continued, her eyes darting nervously to Doreen. "He used his one phone call. He knows they'll be listening to me, so he was cryptic. He told me to tell you something, and you need to understand it, Jaime. He said, the truth survives in the orchid. The truth survives in the orchid." The message hit me with the force of a physical blow. The Thorne estate. Marcus's greenhouse. The beautiful, rare orchids he collected, the flowers he poured his heart into. Was that a clue? Did Marcus leave something there? A physical piece of evidence, a will, a final message? Kais knew it was the only place I'd understand. I have to go now, Clara said, her eyes welling up. Be strong. We're fighting for you, Jaime. She squeezed my hand, a silent promise, before Dorian gently ushered her out. I lay back on the pillow, the message echoing in my mind. The truth survives in the orchid. It was the only thing that gave me hope. But my fragile sense of resolve was instantly obliterated when the door opened again and Evender stepped in. He moved with the quiet grace of a predator, coming to stand right at my bedside. He looked impeccable, his suit unsullied by the chaos of the night before. His cold blue eyes swept over my restrained body, over the 4 lines and the bruises, and something flickered in their depths, not pity, but a terrifying, possessive grief. He reached out a hand and, with a gentleness that was more terrifying than any rage, stroked my forehead, pushing back the damp strands of my hair. I flinched, but I couldn't pull away. You really scared me last night, Jaime, he murmured, his voice soft, almost tender, yet laced with a dangerous intensity. His thumb traced the sharp line of my jaw. I won't lie. I never wanted you. You were Marcus's choice, a transaction. But now. His eyes dropped to my stomach, resting on the life that pulsed weakly beneath the sheets. The life that was his only remaining claim to the Thorne legacy. His gaze returned to mine, sharp, possessive, and terrifyingly resolved. I lost Marcus, he whispered, the sound thick with a chilling finality. I won't lose my heir. And I won't lose you either. Chapter 8, Web of Power. The next morning, I was moved. Not to another room, but out of the hospital entirely. Evender didn't trust the medical staff, the surveillance, or the security. He wanted me locked down, isolated, and under his absolute control. I was transported via a private ambulance, an elaborate procession of black Thorne security vehicles, to the main Thorne estate. I was taken not to a bedroom, but to a private medical wing, a sleek, cold annex built into the sprawling mansion. The walls were sterile white, the equipment top of the line, and the windows were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a panoramic view of the manicured grounds. It was beautiful, opulent, and utterly inescapable. My personal doctor, an emotionless man named Dr. Alaric, and 2 dedicated nurses were now my only human contact, all of them strictly controlled by Evender. The true lockdown began. Evender started his psychological campaign, a subtle, calculated chess game designed to keep me docile until the baby was born. Half manipulation, half menace. He would visit me twice a day. In the mornings, he was the concerned, wronged husband. He'd bring me expensive, organic meals, read me news updates, and speak softly of the legacy I was carrying, the child who would unite 2 powerful bloodlines. You are safe here, Jaime, he'd promise, his hand resting lightly, possessively, on my shoulder. No one can hurt you here. Not Kais, not your friends, not the people who envy my position. I will protect you. But in the evenings, the menace would creep in. He'd speak of Kais's arrest, of the treachery he had committed against the Thorne name. He'd reveal that Dorian was busy destroying the remaining evidence of the financial irregularities Marcus had discovered, bribing officials, and ensuring the police report from the refinery incident painted Kais as a violent trespasser. He doesn't care about you, Jaime, Evender would hiss, his eyes turning glacial. He just wants to use my heir as a weapon against me. He will never get close to this child. I will see to that, even if I have to bury him beneath the corporate tower. I was caught in a current of fear and confusion. I knew Evender was a monster, but his possessiveness was a suffocating blanket. It was a terrifying realization. He genuinely believed that by keeping me and the baby under lock and key, he was protecting his legacy and his possession. I was no longer just a surrogate. I was a prize, the vessel for the one thing he couldn't create himself, an alpha heir. Meanwhile, in the outside world I could no longer touch, Clara and Lucien were meeting in secret. I only learned about their movements through eavesdropping. Dr. Alaric was supposed to be a loyal Thorne employee, but he was also a habitual smoker, and his nicotine addiction made him careless. He would step just outside the door to make private calls, believing the thick walls masked his conversations. Once, while pretending to be asleep, I heard him speaking about the ongoing legal battles, the names Lucien and Clara being thrown around like contraband. The most damning piece of information I overheard, which made the blood drain from my face, was a hushed conversation between Evender and Dorian late one night. They spoke of the baby's due date, which were still weeks away. The merger is happening next month, Evender said, his voice cold and flat. I need the child declared the rightful heir before the deal closes. I don't care what the doctors say about the risks, Dorian. Induce labor next week. We will bring the child into the world early. And Jaime? Dorian asked, a chilling pragmatism in her tone. His a complication, Evender sighed, as if discussing a broken appliance. He served his purpose. Once the heir is secured, and my authority is cemented, he will be relocated permanently. A deep, comfortable quiet life somewhere in Europe. He will sign over all parental rights, and he will never see the child or us again. Make sure the paperwork is ready. The words hit me like a physical punch. Induce labor early. Take the baby. Relocate Jaime permanently. This wasn't about protection, it was about severance. He was going to cut me out of my own life, steal my child, and silence me forever. I had to get out. The idea of escape, which had been a vague, desperate hope, now became a brutal, immediate necessity. I had to find a way to warn Kais and Lucien that the timeline had just been violently accelerated. I lay in the sterile bed, the fear turning into a cold, diamond-hard resolve. I had to find the orchid. Kais's message, the truth survives in the orchid, was my only guide. The next day, during my mandatory light exercise time, I was wheeled into Marcus's beloved solarium, the massive, glass-domed greenhouse where he tended his incredible collection of rare orchids. The air was thick and humid, smelling of rich soil and sweet, exotic blooms. Dorian was watching me closely, but her attention was mostly on her tablet. I moved my eyes slowly, subtly, searching the lush green chaos. Marcus had always been a man of gentle secrets, of hidden meanings. My eyes landed on a particularly magnificent, deep purple orchid, a rare species that Marcus had once told me was his favorite. It was mounted on a small, dark wooden stand near the center of the room. I felt a pull toward it, a certainty that defied logic. I feel dizzy, I stammered, putting a hand on the nearby potting table. Dr. Alaric rushed over, fussing with my pulse monitor. Dorian's attention was momentarily diverted as she spoke into her earpiece. In that split second of distraction, I reached out, my fingers trembling, and felt along the base of the orchid's wooden mount. There was a faint give. With a rush of adrenaline, my fingers found a tiny, almost invisible indentation. I pressed it. The small wooden plaque listing the orchid species slid open with a soft, mechanical click. Hidden inside, tucked neatly into the recess, was a metal USB drive. It wasn't the hard drive Lucien had, but a small, sleek device shaped like a miniature, delicate orchid bloom, the same deep purple as the flower above it. It was too personal, too perfectly hidden to be anything other than what it was, a message. A final video message from Marcus. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a desperate drumbeat of both fear and hope. Dorian was coming back. I snatched the tiny orchid-shaped USB drive and palmed it, my sweaty fingers closing around the metal. As she reached the table, I slid the drive deep under my wrist brace, where the wide cuff of the hospital gown concealed it perfectly. "Are you all right, Jaime?" she asked, her eyes sharp. "Just a dizzy spell," I mumbled, trying to control my breathing. I need to go back inside. It's too warm." As I was wheeled back to my pristine prison, a terrifying thought struck me. Who was this message for? It was hidden on his estate, addressed, as I knew instinctively, to whoever protects my child. Chapter 9, The Ghost's Will. Back in the sterile silence of the medical wing, I waited until Dr. Alaric had completed his evening rounds and the night nurse, a quiet, older woman, had settled down to her monitoring station near the door. The low glow of the medical screens provided the only light. I slid my hand beneath the protective cuff on my wrist and pulled out the orchid-shaped USB drive. I needed a machine. The room was full of high-tech medical equipment, but no personal computer. Then I saw it, a sleek, wall-mounted display unit, primarily used for showing my vital signs and medical history, with a faint USB port tucked discreetly on its side. It was a huge risk, but I had no choice. Evender was moving up the date. I had days, maybe hours, before he induced labor and took my child forever. With my heart hammering a chaotic rhythm against my ribs, I used a bent wire from a hospital bag seal to slip the straps off my left wrist. I crept across the floor, my pregnant body moving with an unnatural urgency. The port was tight. I managed to plug in the drive and, using the wall-mounted screen's simple touch interface, I navigated to the new file. It was a single, encrypted video file. Luckily, Marcus had anticipated the need for speed. The password was a simple date, our wedding anniversary. The video began immediately. Marcus's face filled the large screen. He looked tired, older than I remembered, but his eyes, those kind, golden eyes, were filled with a profound sadness. He wasn't smiling. He was speaking to me, a ghost from the past, his final words hanging heavy in the silent room. "If you're watching this," Marcus began, his voice a low, painful whisper, "then Evender has done exactly what I feared. He's cornered you. He's taken the child. I'm already gone." He paused, taking a ragged breath. "The Sierra merger, it's not legitimate, Jaime. It's a shell corporation, a front for the Thorne family's illegal operations. I have evidence that shows Evender and my father are deeply involved in money laundering and worse. I was going to expose them, but they moved too fast." My blood ran cold. Marcus's father? Evender's own father, the emperor figure. It was an intergenerational conspiracy. The betrayal was deeper than I could have ever imagined. Marcus continued, his voice hardening with final resolve. "They need the baby, Jaime. The child you carry. It's not just an heir for the company. The Thorne line believes the child's alpha power, a specific genetic marker, is key to controlling their criminal network. Evender will raise the baby to be a weapon, the head of a criminal empire. I couldn't let that happen. Not to my son. Not to your child." Tears streamed down my face. Our child. He had accepted the child as his own, a final, beautiful act of love. "I amended my legal will 6 months ago," Marcus confessed, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I used a loophole. I named a protector. A legal guardian of the child, to take over if both Evender and I were incapacitated. That person is Kais. He is the only alpha I trust with this. He is loyal, he is outside their control, and he is righteous." He looked directly at the camera, and his earnestness was overwhelming. "You have to trust Kais, Jaime. Trust Lucien, the lawyer, he has the original will, and he's honest. Trust Clara, she's your friend. The evidence they have is the financial crime. But Kais has the legal right. You need to get this message to them. It is the ghost's will. It is the proof that Evender has no right to this child." The video cut out. I sat there in the dark, the orchid-shaped USB drive warm in my hand, my body shaking. Marcus hadn't betrayed me, he had saved me. He had orchestrated the entire chain of events, the pregnancy, the hunt, the evidence, to place my child under the protection of the man he trusted most, Kais. My tears of fear were replaced by a burning sense of purpose. I would not be Evender's docile prisoner. I would fight for Marcus's will, for Kais's freedom, and for the life of my child. I was no longer a victim. I was the key to a revolution. I resolved to escape, but this time, it wouldn't be a desperate run. It would be smart. I had to use the one weapon I possessed, my pregnancy and the medical staff's pity. Over the next few days, I became the model patient, yet constantly complaining of intense, sharp, localized pain. Dr. Alaric grew concerned, ordering the nurses to check my monitors more frequently. It was the night nurse, the quiet, older woman, who finally provided the opening. She had a son the same age as me. While Dr. Alaric was called away for an urgent Thorne corporate meeting, I clutched my stomach and groaned, forcing a sweat to break out on my brow. "Please," I pleaded, my voice cracking with desperation. "Dorian doesn't trust anyone. I need to make a call to my friend, Clara. She has my medication list. I'm afraid to take anything the doctor gives me unless she confirms it." I was crying genuine tears now, the fear for my child fueling my performance. "Please, it's my baby's life. Don't tell Dorian." The nurse, her eyes filled with sympathy, hesitated for only a second. She activated the wall-mounted phone and quickly stepped out to check on a monitor, leaving the line open. I dialed Clara's secure, untraceable number from memory, praying she'd pick up. "It's me," I whispered urgently when I heard her frantic hello. "Clara, listen. Kais is right. Marcus left a will. He named Kais the Guardian. Get Lucien. The timeline is moved up, Evender is inducing labor early next week. You have to move now. Tell Kais, Tell him I have a copy of the final message. He needs the original will and the evidence, and I need a rescue at the estate. We're coming, Jaime, Clara choked out, her voice a mix of terror and steel. We're going to use the will and the evidence to hit him legally, and we're going to get you out physically. Be ready. We'll be there before the sun sets tomorrow. I hung up, heart pounding, and the nurse returned, adjusting the monitors with nervous haste. The plan was in motion. But my careful plotting was a day too late. Later that afternoon, Evender's face appeared on the in-room monitor, his eyes cold and furious. He hadn't bothered to come to the room. Dr. Alaric has just informed me of a minor security breach, he said, his voice dangerously soft. He found a foreign drive still plugged into a medical terminal. A drive that contained a message from my late husband. A message you accessed, Jaime. My blood ran cold. He knew. I apologize for the delay, he continued, a thin, cruel smile stretching his lips. But I won't be wasting any more time. Tell Dr. Alaric to prepare the birthing suite. The birth is happening tonight. The heir will be secured before sunset. I gasped, clutching my stomach as a sharp, wrenching pain, far stronger than any I had felt before, shot through my body. The shock of his announcement, the brutal reality of my impending fate, was too much. A sudden, sharp contraction seized me, causing me to cry out. My water broke, a warm, gushing flood that stained the pristine sheets. It wasn't the stress of his words, it was the reality of the situation. Labor began unexpectedly. Dr. Alaric rushed in, yelling into his comlink. Contractions are 4 minutes apart. This is happening now. Lock down the entire estate, door in. No one gets in or out. The estate went silent, the oppressive quiet a stark contrast to the blinding, white-hot pain that was now consuming my body. The race had begun. Chapter 10, Blood and Legacy. The Thorne estate, that fortress of wealth and betrayal, had turned into a battlefield. The world outside my birthing suite was a cacophony of alarms, shouting, and the screech of tires, yet my immediate world was reduced to the brutal, demanding rhythm of my body. The pain was all-consuming, a tidal wave that washed away fear, memory, and thought, leaving only the need to survive. I was rushed to a sterile, white birthing suite, a room that felt more like an operating theater than a space for life. Dr. Alaric, grim-faced, was barking orders at the two nurses, adjusting machines and preparing the instruments. My body was in distress, my breath ragged, but my mind was fiercely clear on one thing: I would not let Evender win. In the hallway, a chaotic battle was unfolding. Through the thin door, I could hear the roar of a confrontation that had nothing to do with me, yet everything to do with my child. Evender's voice, a chilling, imperious boom, cut through the noise. You are trespassing, Kais. This is my property. Door in. Arrest them. Now. Then, Kais's voice, deep and resonant, filled with a ferocious, righteous anger I hadn't heard before. Evender, you are under arrest. Lucien has delivered the legal documents to the courts. The evidence of the Sierra merger corruption is public. We have Marcus's final legal will. It names me the legal guardian. You have no authority here. The shouting escalated into a physical brawl. I heard the sickening thud of bodies hitting the marble floor, the sharp crack of glass, and the frantic yells of Thorne security. Evender was preparing to claim the baby as his sole heir. He was waiting just outside the door, believing that as soon as the child was born, he could take him and his claim would be absolute. Kais and Lucien had arrived with court officials and a camera crew. The legal will and the evidence were their weapons. Suddenly, the door burst open. It wasn't Evender or Kais, it was Clara. Her hair was disheveled, her face was streaked with dirt, but her eyes were blazing with determination. She slammed the door shut and locked it, pushing a heavy medical cart against it. He's stalling them, Jaime, she gasped, rushing to my side. Don't worry about the noise. Focus. Kais is holding them off. You have to deliver the baby now, before Evender can get in here. The pain was overwhelming. I was screaming now, a raw, primal sound of agony and fury. I can't. Clara? I can't. Yes, you can, she shouted, grabbing my hand and squeezing it with fierce, comforting pressure. This is not for Evender. This is for Marcus. This is for Kais. This is for your son. You fight for him, Jaime. You fight. Inspired by her raw courage, I pushed. I pushed with the fury of a man who had been used, betrayed, and caged. The sounds of the battle outside faded. The world was only me, Clara, and the agonizing, glorious task of bringing a life into the world. A tense showdown was raging in the hallway, Kais versus Evender, the battle of legal power versus corporate control. I heard Evender's voice, dangerously close. You think a piece of paper can stop the Thorne Corporation, Kais? I have the police, the courts, and the money. The child is mine. The final push. A surge of fire, a torrent of relief, and then, a cry. Not a scream of pain, but the small, perfect sound of a newborn baby. Clara cried out in triumph. He's here, Jaime. He's beautiful. I was bleeding and exhausted, collapsing back onto the pillows, the world swaying. The nurse quickly handed the baby to Dr. Alaric, who was checking his vitals. Just as I tried to reach for my son, the door splintered. Doreen, who had somehow slipped away from the battle, smashed the remaining lock and burst into the room. She was wearing her security uniform again, her eyes cold and professional. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Clara. She moved straight to Dr. Alaric and snatched the newborn from his hands. The heir is secured, she stated, her voice robotic. This is a directive from Evender. She turned and sprinted toward a hidden exit I hadn't known existed. No. I screamed, a cry torn from my soul. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy, metal bedpan and hurled it with surprising accuracy at Doreen's head. It struck her with a loud clang. Doreen stumbled, dropping the baby into a padded bassinet before collapsing against the wall, stunned. Clara reached the baby, pulling the bassinet away, shielding the child with her body. The main door flew open. Evender and Kai stood face to face in the hallway, both bloody, both breathing heavily, their fight momentarily stalled. Evender's eyes darted past the chaos of the room, past the blood and the tears, and fixated on the bassinet in Clara's arms. He was losing control. He pulled a small, gleaming weapon from his waistband, a high-tech, corporate-issue stun gun. He raised it, pointing it not at Clara, but at Kais. Give me the child, Evender hissed, his voice tight with maniacal possession. Or I kill him. I lost Marcus, but I won't lose my lineage. The will means nothing if the heir is undefended. Give me the child, Kais. Kais stood firm, his massive body blocking the doorway, his eyes fixed on Evender's weapon. He lowered his voice, dropping all pretense of legal negotiation. You don't get it, Evender, Kais said, his voice quiet, deadly, and filled with a terrifying confidence. The baby is the only thing keeping your world together. And I'm not giving him up. Evender's thumb hovered over the trigger. The entire room went silent. The final, bloody confrontation was about to begin. Chapter 11, Heir of Two Truths, Finale. The hallway was a scene of controlled madness. Evender had Kais cornered, but the moment of deadly silence lasted only a fraction of a second. Kais didn't flinch. Instead of fighting, he used the quiet to deliver a single, devastating word. Look. Evender hesitated, his eyes still fixed on Kais. He saw the lack of fear, the almost pitying resolve in Kais's eyes. He followed Kais's gaze up to the wall-mounted screen in the hallway, the main display for the entire medical wing. The screen wasn't showing vital signs. Lucien had been busy. The screen was now broadcasting a live legal document feed, complete with a news ticker at the bottom. Lucien was reading Marcus's will aloud, his voice amplified and professional, live-streaming the information across the Thorne corporate network and directly to media outlets Clara had arranged. I, Marcus Thorne, Lucien's voice echoed through the speaker system, declare that due to the imminent threat posed by my husband, Evender Thorne, and his father, I name Kais Thorne as the sole legal guardian of my unborn child. Evender's face crumpled. It wasn't the legal document that broke him, it was the name, Kais Thorne. Marcus had somehow known and used Kais's true Thorne family name, the name that had been suppressed for generations. The name that meant Kais was not a simple military alpha, but a legitimate claimant to the ancient Thorne dynasty, with a powerful, hidden bloodline that even Evender's family had tried to bury. The will, now public, was instantly followed by the release of the Sierra merger corruption evidence. If Evender fired his weapon, if he caused any more chaos, the entire Thorne Corporation would collapse under investigation. Marcus had foreseen everything. I pushed myself up onto my elbows, still bleeding, still exhausted, but my eyes were blazing. I looked at Evender, who was momentarily paralyzed by the collapse of his empire. My voice, though weak, carried the strength of a new mother's absolute resolve. This child will never be your weapon. The words were a stake through the heart of his delusion. Evender's stun gun hand trembled. He had lost. Kais moved, not with a frantic lunge, but with the controlled, professional grace of a trained warrior. He disarmed Evender in 2 seconds flat, twisting the weapon from his grip and slamming him against the wall. But instead of delivering a final, brutal blow, Kais simply held him there, pinning him. "It's over, Evender," Kais said, his voice flat. "Your corporate network is being seized. Your father is under investigation. Marcus's will stands. You have nothing." Within minutes, the sirens returned, but this time, they were for justice. Plainclothes officers, directed by Lucien and the court order, moved in. Evender was led away, his face a mask of shocked, silent fury. Dorian was arrested seconds later as an accomplice, the heavy, silver cuffs clicking shut on her wrists. The baby survived. He was small, but his heartbeat, once weak, was now steady and strong. Kais, finally free, rushed to my side, his eyes scanning my face with a desperate, protective love. Per Marcus's final will, Kais was immediately named the legal guardian. There was no legal battle, the evidence was too overwhelming. Jaime, exhausted and emotionally spent, made the only decision that felt right. He would co-parent with Kais. Not romantically, not yet, but with a bond forged in mutual battle, trust, and a shared, protective love for the life Marcus had wanted to save. Epilogue. Months later. The Thorne estate was unrecognizable. The corporate wing was shuttered, but Marcus's solarium, the orchid room, was flourishing. The legal fight had been won. The Thorne Corporation, crippled by the scandal, had been dissolved and the majority of its assets were being turned into a charitable foundation for the support of independent omegas and betas. I was sitting on a stone bench among the orchids, holding my son, Soren. He had Kais's dark hair and Marcus's surprisingly kind, gentle eyes. The air was warm, humid, and smelled of life. I was finally free. Kais found me there. He wasn't in uniform, he was wearing a simple white shirt and dark trousers, looking relaxed for the first time since I'd met him. He knelt down beside the bench, his finger gently tracing the small, perfect line of Soren's cheek. "He looks like you," Kais murmured, his voice soft. "He looks like a new beginning," I corrected, a faint smile touching my lips. We didn't need words. We had faced the highest stakes, the deepest betrayal, and the chaos of an empire's fall. We had both been pawns, and we had both been redeemed. We had a child, a legacy that was neither Evender's weapon nor Marcus's burden, but purely ours. Kais finally stood, and instead of leaving, he stayed, his hand resting on the back of the bench near my shoulder. His gaze met mine, and it was no longer the look of a protector, but of a partner. A man who had earned his place. "The orchids are doing well," Kais noted, picking up a stray leaf. "They always do," I whispered, leaning into his presence, feeling the solid, protective warmth of his body. They just needed the darkness to be cleared away. He smiled then, a genuine, uncomplicated smile that reached his eyes. And in that soft moment, surrounded by the beautiful, silent testament of Marcus's love and Kais's loyalty, I knew our story wasn't over. It was only just beginning, a future born not of contracts or fear, but of shared battle, profound trust, and the gentle, burgeoning hope of a true love.
Thank you so much for sticking with Jaime, Kais, and Evender through every betrayal, every escape, and every impossible choice. Your loyalty and enthusiasm for this story have truly powered us through. Shift to apologetic, personal tone. Now, I have to be completely honest with you all. This final arc, chapters 7 through 11, was shorter and more directly paced than I originally intended. If you felt the action rushed, you're absolutely right. I owe you a sincere apology for not being able to draw out the political intrigue and the emotional fallout as much as I wanted to. I've been suddenly and unexpectedly occupied lately, and unfortunately, I might be out of commission for a while. Knowing that I may not be able to produce content for some time, I simply couldn't leave Jaime and Soren hanging in peril. I wanted to end their story for your sake, to give you the satisfying emotional resolution you deserved, and to finally see Evender's empire crumble before I stepped away. I hope that even in its condensed form, This finale gave you the closure and the sense of justice you were craving. Final call to action. If you love this story, and if you want to support the channel while I'm away, please do me a huge favor. Hit the like button on this video. It helps the story reach new readers. Leave a comment below telling me your favorite moment from the entire saga, or what you hope happens to Jaime and Kais in the future. And please, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have those notifications turned on. Until next time, take care.